Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today, as a fun little Sunday special, I'm going to be talking about the movie Cuties. Now, just to be clear, as a disclaimer, I will not be showing any clips. I will show screenshots just to get the idea across, but that is it, so you're not going to see footage. I made a video about the Cuties marketing and trailer a while back, and I got a little bit of feedback there that I do want to address because it's important and relevant to this video. If you want to skip that, which I don't suggest, I'll put a timestamp, but up to you. One of the first things that people were commenting on that video was that I'd have to find a fluent French speaker because, you know, translation, blah, blah, blah. I am a fluent French speaker. I did watch the movie in French. I lived in France for 8 years, and I actually went to public school for part of the time I lived in France. So there was quite a bit of the movie that I could relate to in some ways, obviously, to some extent. Aside from that, another thing that people were commenting is that if you're not European, you won't get it, which I don't agree with that. I don't think that's a valid argument, but I'm an Italian immigrant. I only moved to the US 6 years ago. So Italian's my first language. Aside from that, there's also the fact that people are bringing up that the director is a Senegalese woman, and some people were kind of implying that you can't critique a director because she's a woman. What you identify as and where you're from has no real bearing on the concept of pedophilia, in my opinion. Apparently this movie was supposed to be about her experiences. I'm not discrediting any of that. What I'm talking about is this movie. I'm not talking about her experiences, what she's gone through, absolutely not, because that's not my place at all. And lastly, people were also mentioning the fact that she was kind of run off the internet, like she was getting death threats and crazy shit like that. We're not doing that here. I'm not about death threats. This is my second time filming because in the first version of this video, I talked a lot about the actual plot, but I don't really think many people care about my entire analysis of the plot because I have like notes upon notes. So I'm just gonna say this, and then we're gonna get to the whole pedophilia issue. So for about the first 35 to 40 minutes, this film is actually very much a stereotypical coming of age film, and I don't mean that in a shady way. It's just like very sad, a lot of emotion. We see that the main character, Amy, her family is going through it. Her parents seem to not exactly be together, like they're still married, but the father decides to take a second wife. We see Amy going to mass, but she doesn't seem to identify with her religion. We see that at school she feels left out, hence why she ends up learning a dance routine to try to fit in with the Cuties, which is the dance little gang of girls. That's really it. Aside from the pedophilia, which we'll get into in a second, it was an extremely slow film. Extremely slow. Like I kept thinking I was at least halfway through, and most of the time I'd look and it'd be like 15 minutes or 20 minutes in. I personally was not a fan of the pacing of the film, but that is not our biggest problem, sadly. There is also debate about this just being art and having a message. Now, I completely address and understand the fact that the message was sexualizing young girls, especially young Black girls, is an issue and we need to discuss this issue. But no discussion in the film was had. And that is one of my main points of contention, is that in this film, a lot of shit was thrown in and never fully explained. Like, they don't delve into religion. They don't delve into what it's like being in a single parent household. They don't delve into what it's like to be bullied, because there is bullying. There's no discussion. So I find a lot of it very gratuitous. So it's kind of like saying, oh yeah, sexualizing children bad. And that's pretty much the movie. And it's like, okay, well, you could have said that in 2 seconds. Just tweet it. Like, I don't need a film to say that. We know. I think we all know. If you saw the clip that's circulating on Twitter of one of the very last scenes where they're dancing extremely provocatively and they're zooming on their genitalia, rip your brain, because I saw a couple seconds of that and I swear to God, I thought the FBI was gonna knock down my door because I was like, I don't wanna be seeing this. I don't think anybody should be seeing this. I just wanna also say, if you look at the reviews, a lot of the people who are enjoying it say very inappropriate things about these young girls. So I'm gonna let that speak for itself. But I do wanna talk about a couple of instances that I thought were extremely inappropriate that you probably haven't seen on Twitter or heard of online. So there's one point where the Cuties are watching a dance routine by this like other dance little gang or whatever, who is like their direct competitor because they're trying to get into a dance competition. And in that, there are equivalently young girls who look to be about the same age. So like, I think they're between 11 and 14. One of them shows her full ass boob in the dance video. It was kind of like the equivalent of a TikTok dance, and she shows her boob. That rubbed me the wrong way because it was like, what Like, what is this for? Like, did we have to go to this extent to make the point? What point are you making? Can we talk about it more rather than just show it and be like, okay, bye. So eventually what ends up happening is that the main character, Ami, ends up being part of the Cuties, and because she's consumed so much online, she's like showing them how to twerk and how to like thrust their pelvis area. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't make me want to vomit, but it's not working. She's showing them how to do essentially sexy dances. In that scene, there are like zoom-ins of her putting like her hands on like the other Cuties and showing them how to move. And that didn't sit right with me. I don't want to see young children twerking in little shorts with sexualized music too. I never want to see that. Let alone seeing zoomed in, low-key, almost slow-mo versions of that. Like who's benefiting from that? Because surely it's not us non-pedophiles, just saying. So that was already the first point where I was like, okay, we went from coming of age story to pedo bait real quick. And those scenes to me should never be in the film, period. But those scenes to me seemed to linger for no reason other than to linger. So you start wondering. Some people were saying, and this is a valid claim, that they think the point of the movie is to make you uncomfortable, so we start this discussion. And I can agree to an extent, but at the same time, we have to recall that these actresses are child actors. Like, they're not 18-year-olds pretending to be younger or 18-year-olds who look like 11-year-olds. Like, these are children doing these things, and they're gonna get a very particular type of attention from that. And I don't even know what that's gonna do to their psyche. I'm afraid to think about it, frankly. As much as I see where this film was trying to go, in reality, I just don't think it translated. Like, I really think it's not me trying to be a contrarian bitch or anything, but really, I just don't think it translated. I think the message got lost somewhere. It just did not translate. And I think that's also why so many people are even afraid to watch the film, because they feel so uncomfortable. It feels like you're seeing something you shouldn't be seeing. Your message is already lost if people feel that way. So there's a point in the movie where they pull down Ami's pants and her underwear is exposed, and they make fun of her for the underwear she's wearing, which in and of itself seems like another gratuitous scene because it doesn't add anything to the plot. And her friends, the Cuties, are like, oh my god, like, we're so embarrassed, everyone keeps mentioning it, blah, blah, blah. So what does Ami do to kind of try to repair this? She takes a picture of her vagina and posts it online. Even the choice of her doing that to me was suspicious because it really did not add anything to the plot. So I was like, what was this for? Thankfully, you don't see any of that. I mean, you see her taking the picture, but you're from an angle where you don't see anything, thank God. So that also was alarming. So then at one point, this is by far one of the scenes that troubled me the most. So at one point, they creep into a place that looks like a laser tag place, and it's like dark and they're like black lights, whatever. They get caught for creeping in, and there are two guards. Now, one of the guards is, I call him Hamster. You know how if you hold a hamster, sometimes it looks like their eyes are about to roll out of their heads? This guard had that vibe. Like, it looked like his eyes were about to just fucking roll down his face like tears. It was truly troubling. So when they get caught, to get out of trouble, I think it was Ami, she decides to start twerking as kind of a way to get out of trouble for sneaking in, because the guards were like, oh, we're gonna call your parents, and she's like, no, and then she starts dancing like that, almost like her dancing was a kind of payment to be like, okay, look at me be sexual like this, now let us go. The way the guard looks at her when she does that, had I been there, he would be strangled. As much as that was troubling, that is probably one of the only moments that actually involved some kind of commentary, because the way I read it anyway was like, some people are just so okay with wanting to see children in sexual positions that they don't even hide it, and this guard was a living embodiment of that. So I thought that that was probably the only moment where I saw what they were trying to do, but I still don't think it was executed properly in the least. And they end up getting away with it. They, leave the laser tag place. Their parents aren't called. So then towards the end, I think this is probably the most popular scene. This one's circulating on Twitter. There's the infamous dance routine on stage where they're all dressed up in their getup. This, I think, is really the straw that broke the camel's back for me, because I was deeply uncomfortable watching it the whole time. In fact, it's such an uncomfortable film that my husband didn't want to watch it with me, and I was wearing headphones, and sometimes he'd just look over and be like, what the fuck? And I'm like, dude, who knows? So this last scene, they're doing the dance routine, and there is extreme focus on their genital areas. And it zooms in, and they're wearing small shorts, and it zooms in to such an uncomfortable level that it feels like, it reminds me of a concept I learned when I was taking a film class. And it's just kind of like the whole voyeur vibe. You know how when you watch horror movies, a lot of the times at the beginning or at some point, there's like a girl taking off her clothes about to shower, and you're from the perspective of someone who's like looking from outside her window like a creepy ass peeping Tom. That's the vibe I got here. It very much felt like you are seeing something you shouldn't be seeing. It makes you feel disgusting. And again, had it been put in another way, had it been filmed in a different way, I think the message could have come through. But the reality is, did you need to use actual children to portray this and discuss this? No. Did you actually have to have them dance in super sexualized ways and zoom in? No. And on top of that, it's like, if you're gonna comment on this, I think this is the type of thing where you want to be very clear on where you stand, because leaving it up to interpretation in this way, because obviously everything's up to interpretation, but it's like, if there's not a very clear trajectory and you're just throwing something out there and not saying anything, people are gonna come to conclusions. So I think the film should have been a lot clearer with that, and I think the focus should have been on that. But like I said, because there's so many things thrown in, there's the religion aspect, there's her being essentially bullied, there's her being alone, there's the single parent household, like all of these things are just thrown in and never really analyzed or discussed. It's almost like a sensory overload of what am I supposed to be paying attention to here, because there are all these different things, but none is really gone too in depth. Does that make sense? So overall, do I think this film was as bad as Twitter said? Honestly, I have not been that uncomfortable watching a film in a very long time. And when I was a kid, I did watch The Human Centipede. So like, I think I have enough of a gut to usually take things, but this was very uncomfortable, and I just don't think the message translated. Of course, other people might see it differently. I personally don't see it that way, and I am concerned for what's gonna happen mentally to these young actresses. Let me know what you think should be done. Should Netflix remove it? What do you think? I personally think it should be removed. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.